There's a checklist for the Union Conference Office of Education. Again, not something that you'll necessarily have to worry about. Then there's one for the local conference. Then we start getting to where you're interested in checklists, and that's the principalship. On page XIV is a checklist for the principal. We've tried to think of the things that would be important for the principal to do before, during, and after the visit. Let's take a look at a few of those. Responsibility of the principal before the visit: cooperate with the local and union conference, lead the school board in the review of the previous reports, arrange for the on-site staff orientation, make recommendations to the school board for membership on the coordinating committee, develop a timeline for completion of the self-study, establish study committees, distribute the following materials, assist the coordinating committee in the preparation of action plans, seek board approval for the action plans, complete the school profile section, complete the progress report section, and lead the coordinating committee in copy editing the final report. 13, at least 30 days prior to the visit, distribute the completed self-study report to each member of the visiting committee, the local conference, the union conference, school board members, school faculty and staff. One of the questions that we ask when we get to a school on a visiting committee is, have you seen this document? We meet with the faculty. Say, have you seen this document? And a lot of times we say, what document? Oh, you know, they told us about that one in faculty meeting one day, but we haven't seen it. That does not bode well for your school and the visiting committee report that is written. So again, the principal is responsible for disseminating this report to the school board, the faculty, interested parties, the union, the conference. That's one of the duties for the principal prior to the visit. Another problem we have sometimes is that the school, as a visiting committee chair, I call up a month or month and a half before and say, how's it going? And, well, we'll have that in the mail. And then 3 weeks before comes and 2 weeks before comes and call again. They say, well, we had some problems. Does not bode well for the school. Sometimes we get the report the day before we show up. And that doesn't make visiting committee members feel very happy when they get to the campus. So we have a timeline in here, and you'll see that in a few minutes, a suggested timeline. I would make a target to have the final edited report ready 45 days before the visit. That would be my target. Have it ready to go so that within 30 days prior to the visit, they have it in the mail. You're not mailing it off to the visiting committee at that time. They already have it 30 days prior to the visit. And then 14, cooperate with the local conference regarding the plans for the visit. Logistics are important. We need to, without being extravagant, I think we need to think about what it would be like to visit a campus and what kinds of things as a principal we could do that would make a visiting team feel comfortable. Now, I'll tell you a horror story or two about evaluation. The very first one I had was the second year that I was a principal. And so we did the report. We worked really hard on the report. We sent it out to the committee. We put the committee in a very nice hotel near the school, had refreshments for them when they got there every day, a nice room for them to meet in private. All of the supplementary materials were there. The committee showed up about 10 o'clock every morning and left at about 2 every day. They didn't interview one teacher. They didn't interview any of the staff. They spent a little time with me as the principal, and that chair, who has since retired and died, philosophy was, if the self-study listed an area of strength, you write a commendation. And if they listed an area of growth or an area that they wanted to improve on, you wrote a recommendation. And so that's what they did. Now, I could have written that visiting committee report as the principal of that school. I was furious. We put all that money out for them to come and be in a nice hotel, nicer than we would have stayed in, and all the nice things we did for them, and I could have written that report without any of that expense. Now, that doesn't happen anymore. I felt I was unhappy enough about that, that I wrote a letter to the NAD and everybody else I could think of saying, don't ever send somebody like that to my school again. You know, that's not what it's about. So that was a word for the visiting committee and those kinds of people. Typically, though, a visiting committee will come. I would recommend that you don't try and double them up in hotel rooms. Reserve a hotel room in a family-style hotel. I stay in a lot of hotels, and I'll tell you this, the more you pay for the hotel, the less service you get at the hotel, unless you're at the very low end. But the Fairfield Inn, those kinds of places that are the low-end corporate hotels, typically have a breakfast that's usually very good. The internet is free in the room, usually wireless. So think about the kind of hotel that you are planning to put the visiting committee in, and ask the hotel for a group rate. Ask them if there are any amenities that they could add to a block of 5 or 6 rooms that you're going to reserve at that hotel for several days. Talk about some of those arrangements that you could make, and often you can get a discount at a hotel if you have a relationship with them. And again, I would say don't try and put them in the, in the Renaissance or the Hilton. Find a hotel that's a family-oriented hotel that has those kinds of amenities. Visiting committees really appreciate being able to do internet at night, do their email at night for back to their school, those kinds of, and have a nice breakfast in the morning. So think a little bit about what you're going to do for the visiting committee while they're there. Refreshments are nice. I wouldn't go overboard on refreshments, but you would ask the visiting committee chair, what kinds of things would you like? It might even be that you'd send out a survey ahead and say, what kind of soft drinks do you like? To the visiting committee. That's going to cost you stamps on 5 or 6 envelopes, but it's going to give you an idea. If they say we don't want any junk food, then you'd want to think about fruit or yogurt or something else that you would put in the room for the visiting committee. I'll probably have another time to talk about this, but since I'm on the subject right now, I would encourage you to provide a room that has a computer and printer that are hooked together, that work together. Usually the visiting committee will bring laptops. And so if you can find a printer that is adaptable to a lot of different computers, that's a positive for the committee, because then I typically bring my own laptop, make the master report on my laptop. I ask my visiting committee members to bring flash drives, and we put the report together on my computer. And I love it when I can walk in and there's an IT person there who says, oh, I've had this computer before, it's going to work with our printer, pow, we're on, and we're going. The last school I went to, great hospitality, but the printer was the school printer. And the time we were there, they were preparing their school yearbook on that printer, printing thousands of pages. And so it was difficult for us to print, when we needed to print, drafts. We had to kind of wait in line for the students. And so, again, think about what a visiting committee would need and what would make their work easy and efficient. And then try and provide that. A private room, doesn't have to be fancy, but a private room with a computer and or a printer that is versatile enough that it will work on basically any of the laptops that show up. What else for visiting committees? Questions about how you treat a visiting committee since we're there? Typically the visiting committee chair will invite the coordinating committee and or the administration to a dinner during the time that they're at your campus. Typically there's, on the first night, there's a reception of some kind where the visiting committee members can introduce themselves to your faculty and staff, and where your faculty and staff can introduce themselves by name to the visiting committee. That really helps a visiting committee to feel comfortable. The next day when they're going to classrooms to visit and when they're scheduling appointments with faculty members, they've got a face. And I'll guarantee you that visiting committees, when those people give their introduction, they already know who they're looking for, because they've been assigned certain subject areas to review. And so when that person stands up and introduces themselves by name, those visiting members that are assigned to them, they're watching. And it's really helpful for them to have that connection. And if there can be a little time that's informal during the reception, where the visiting committee members and the faculty can kind of mix, that also, sometimes visiting committee members want to make an appointment right then, or find out when the parameters are that the faculty can be available for them, or what class the teacher would prefer they visit. So those kinds of contacts are really good on the very first night. And so not a fancy dinner, that's not what the visiting committee is looking for typically. They've flown all day, they get there in the afternoon, they've had an orientation in the hotel where they're staying probably, but they want to meet and greet. Any other questions or comments about the whole visiting committee, how that works when they come to your campus? Yes? Okay, question is, how much should you set aside for the visit? Other than the hotel expenses, and various unions do it different ways. I know in North Pacific, they've gone to where they pay all the expenses for the visiting team. The school puts in an amount every year that they put into a big pot, and then they pay all the expenses. But typically, what happens is that the sending organization pays the travel expense to the site, okay? So you typically, at the school that's being visited, your expenses would be the hotel while they're there and a per diem while they're there. Or sometimes, I like to eat in the cafeteria. If there's food service on campus, I like to just to eat in the cafeteria. For lunch, even in day schools, if they have a hot lunch, I want to eat in the cafeteria because I want to sit down at a table with kids and just, talk to them. Find out about their school. Or if there's faculty members at a table, I'll often go and sit at a faculty table. So I would say whatever the hotel times however many people are coming, that's going to be your primary expense. And then per diem. Typically the sending institution will pay the travel expenses to your campus. Another nice feature is usually the chair will rent a car. It's nice to offer if you have a school van or something like that you could make available to the visiting committee while they're there. You just ask them, what kind of logistics are you going to need back and forth from the hotel? And typically the chair, like I said, will have a rental car. Often another person will have a rental car and they just say, thanks, we don't need any assistance. But those are the responsibilities typically of a school for a visiting committee. So you'd budget whatever that hotel in your area would cost. Plus, but I would say, the family-style hotels are the ones that most of us are most comfortable in. Holiday Inn Express, Fairfield by Marriott, and you might even visit the hotel beforehand and say, we've got these educators coming in and we want to make sure they're comfortable. And do you have internet in the room? And ask some of those questions. And often it's included in the lower-priced chain hotels, where in the upscale hotels, you pay $10 a day to use the internet. And local telephone calls are $1.50. And the other places, everything's free. So that would be just a word from somebody that does these visits all the time. Let's go back to page XV. During the visit, there are some responsibilities for the principal. Provide a meeting room. In consultation with the chair, arrange meetings of appropriate groups. Consider having substitute teachers or volunteers available to facilitate interviews with teachers. A nice touch. If the teacher thought they had a release period that they weren't expecting, it makes them very happy during the interview if somebody else is watching their class. And you've arranged for that as the principal. Coordinate with the chair to arrange a meeting of the faculty and staff, available board members, and student representatives for the exit report. I've been at schools where the whole school came to the exit report. Parents, students, we had 300 at the exit report. I've been at other places where the schedule just doesn't allow and we get most of the faculty, and I always invite the students, like, what are you guys doing here and all this? So come on, we're gonna give a report on the last day we're here. And so it varies. But I would say do what's comfortable for you. If you have students that are interested in the process, I think it's great to invite them. It's kind of boring. We read through a report that lasts usually about 30 or 40 minutes.